بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله نبي الهدى محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. This is just a quick inshallah ta'ala continuation of our series, how to live with spirit, and this spirit has to be ideal. Of course we try our best, but we always fall short. However, when you have the mindset to live with an ideal spirit, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just because of this intention, allows you to get the ajr and to have this change happening in your life, because it's on your mind. And subhanallah, I want you to know that's part of the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you have anything on your mind and you want to push through it, you want it will be very, very difficult for it not to happen. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be motivated. Just imagine if in general people work extremely hard and they just don't see results. Of course, most people on earth will just quit. Just imagine. People work very, very hard, but the vast majority of them, they don't see results. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, well, you will see the results only in the hereafter. We're gonna quit too soon because we're human beings. If we don't see fruition of our work, it doesn't have to be 100%, but we have to see some type and some signs of fruition and results out of the hard work that we do. So it's a mindset. And today, we need to build on the mindset that I would love to live an ideal spiritual life. So part of it is what we are in. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it very clear that while you are fasting, I don't want you to just refrain from eating and drinking and many other permissible acts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala restricted us from. You would find many of the young children, as they grow up into our programs, they go to school, they always think that when you lie, when you cheat, when you mishandle things, when you say foul language, that your siyam is not valid. And which is not true. But where did they get this idea from? It's because they felt and they lived with their parents that they should not lie during Ramadan, they should not mistreat people, they should not mishandle, they should not. Now it processed in their mind that it is haram to a point that it invalidates the siyam and the fasting. It does not get to that extent, but it does get to an extent where we are absolutely risking our fast. Not that the fast has to be repeated, but we're not getting the ajr that we are looking for. Because Prophet Muhammad ﷺ clearly said that if someone is fasting and claims to be fasting and does not leave the qawl of zur, the false testimony, and the lies, then and this indecency of manners, etiquettes, and foul language, then there is no need for that person to fast. Do you think that Prophet ﷺ is telling people, well, if you have the habit to lie, do not fast? Absolutely not. So they still have to fast. This is metaphoric just to bring how severe this issue is. So this is how we need to learn these concepts. When people tell you, well, there are a lot of people, many people that fast, but they still lie. They still harm others. They still have bad character. So do we quit? Do we tell them you don't need to fast because Prophet ﷺ said Allah doesn't need that? No. This is just to stress on the point that this is so severe. Let's not fall back and tell them, oh, you don't need to fast. No, we need to tell them, listen, by the way, you might be wasting most of your reward away because you're not living an ideal spiritual living of who a fasting person is. Okay, so now we get to the next level. What do we do besides the three major things that everybody knows during Ramadan? We should not eat, we should not drink, and spouses should not have any sexual relationship together during the day of Ramadan. That's known, mashallah, the Ummah got it. And now beyond that, this is where we need to live with an ideal spirit. Many of us have bad habits to a certain extent. Now some people, maybe a person may be described to be pathological liar. They just lie throughout their life. They lie left and right in order to justify something within their life, to cover up for their shortcoming or to push their own personal agenda. That's how they live. Now, not everyone is a pathological liar. Some people, they do lie, but to a certain extent. Some people, sometimes they indirectly say false testimony. So false testimony doesn't have to be always something legal that you go in front of a judge and the judge will ask you to swear on the Quran, and then if you don't say the truth, then you're saying a false testimony. Well, that's the most severe type of false testimony. What about daily false testimonies? So now we're done with lying. Everybody knows that lying should not. And Ramadan is a training camp to allow us to control our tongue so we do not do it. How do we really have a mindset? Well, every time it happens, you need to be very regretful. You need to actually be within yourself to say, what I just did, what I just said in the gathering, what I just said on the phone was not true. And you need to live this guilt that, by the way, this was not true. I know it was a slip of a tongue. I just wanted to get out of it. And it was just the simplest way out. Let's just say all these light lies that we say, they're still lies. Oh, you know, you're late to something and you just make up a quick story that I was involved in this, or the traffic was this, or I was just doing something and I didn't realize, or my watch, or we just don't want to say that we did not plan it well. So this is still a lie, but it's not to the extent of the major lies that do harm, but they're still considered to be lies. Now, as you live through the guilt, inshallah ta'ala, it will get you out of this bad habit. Now, second, what about false testimonies? When it's not the severe form of false testimony, how can we do false testimony on a regular basis without intending, with a false, with not a malicious intent? Well, again, with a slip of a tongue, our tongues are very loose, to a point that while we talk, we are very, very lenient on confirming news that we hear. So we're not really stressing to others that this is something I heard, this is something I'm not really sure. We're just saying that this, and we're just passing on, well, I heard that such and such is such and such, right? So I heard by itself is not an excuse for someone to think that we are out of it, right? No, because let's assume this, and again, guilt is going to be the only way that we can purify our souls from this. How do we fall into this major trap without us knowing? Is by just thinking that if I say I heard, I'm not really sure. I'll tell you how. We should not even do this. We should not even do this. Let's assume there is some type of rumor about someone. And the rumor has surrounded or has really spread among maybe a very small limited circle. Let's say 5 people. Now, in your gathering, when you say, well, I heard, in your gathering there were 3 more people. Now the circle has enlarged to 8 people. And the 3 that were with you, they passed on the same I heard statement. Now it's passed on to 10 people, and it multiplies, and it multiplies. Now you did not just pass it on to 3 people, but to many others. And same thing with the very first person that said, I heard. So what do? We don't say I heard. What if I know some information? Well, since it's not confirmed, then keep it to yourself. But what if, let's ask ourselves a question. What if I actually hold on to my tongue and don't say anything? I just keep the information that I have that is not confirmed, right? It's not a confirmed information. What if I hold it to myself? What harm am I causing others? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now let's go to the second part of it. The people say, well, how are you going to prevent harmful people from going on with their abuse to others? Very good question. Very good and legit question. Well, you don't resolve and save people by saying, I heard. If you have a second-hand information, you have information, but it's not confirmed information, then it would be your duty to work on a process to confirm such information. So, if you really want to save people, if you really want to protect people from such harm of what the rumor is talking about these people and the harm that they might cause to others or what have you, then you need to work on finding out whether the information that you have is a legit information or just a rumor. So this is where you have to do the due diligence of following through to make sure that the information you have is correct. And yes, that requires a lot of effort. That requires you doing a lot of investigation, data collection, not being biased, and hearing from every party, and hearing from people that are spreading the rumors, and hearing from people that are the affected parties, and hearing from people that are close to these 2 parties, and hearing from people that have lived the experience with them, and so on and so forth. So it takes a lot of process. That's why people don't do it. And they just resort to I heard, and I heard is not permissible in Islam. You're only permissible to safeguard people, to go in front of a judge and say something, to confirm something only if you have a confirmed information. If you don't, then you don't share the information with anybody. How is that different from, let's say, the start of Ramadan? You have someone, a friend of yours, just told you, oh, I have some friends in California and they have sighted the moon or the crescent. Or let's say for Eid, we come to Eid and we want to know whether Ramadan is 29 days or 30 days. And you just heard, and your local people are telling you, is tomorrow Eid or not? You're not going to tell people, well, I heard that the crescent was seen, so I think tomorrow is Eid, so you can go ahead and break your fast. None of us do that. Why? Because we think it's a major thing. What do you mean? I'm not going to tell people to break their fast just because of I have a second-hand information. So that is an excellent decision of yours. So how is that different than spreading false rumors? It could be true rumors, but to me it's second-hand. I'm not really sure. So we're going to always assume that it's a rumor, which is a false information, unless it is proven otherwise that it is solid and confirmed, it is concrete. So this is something that I want you also to leave with today. So we talked about the degrees of lying, and we should not always set the worst case scenario, because when you have that high standard when you have that set of the form of lying, a person who is pathological liar, as we said, and we only take that example as a liar, then we have discredited every level of lying that others do, which is still considered to be lying. Then we talked about false testimony, and we said we should not always think of it to be in front of a judge and swearing on the Quran. No, it could be as simple as in my own living room with my own family members, that I loosely say something and I increase the circle of false rumors and false accusations. Because it was limited to only 5 people, now it's 8, now it's 10, now it's 18, now it's 50, it's 100, it's 500, and it's all because of those that allowed it to happen. And unfortunately, you were among those that allowed it to happen. So whatever number you picked up from, let's assume you picked up from number 8, and now it's 500, then we will be accounted for whatever number that comes from 8 up to 500 people that are spreading those rumors. You see how serious that is? That's why it is so great to control our tongues. And yes, to have the habit of, I don't have to share everything that I know. I really don't, unless it comes to become a confirmed information, as we said, and that takes a due diligence and a process if you're willing to do it. Now we move on to the third, inshallah ta'ala, aspect. And from this third aspect, we will, inshallah, conclude, which is abuse. And abuse is a large, loose title and label, but it encompasses many things. So what about people that are fasting, but they abuse others? And the abuse are from so many different ways. It could be your sharp tongue. It could be your way of treating others. It could be the unfair style of relationship that you have. And it could be more severe, where it comes to emotional abuse, and it comes to physical abuse, and it comes to so many different ways of abuse. Again, remember that we have to do layers. You can't always assume the worst, because this would make us fall into so many lower layers, not thinking that we're doing something wrong. Because we're always thinking, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not physically abusing people. Yeah, you're right. You're not physically abusing people, but you're emotionally abusing people. Your sharp tongue is abusing people. It's really hurting people's feeling. It's really messing up their relationship with others and with your own family members. So do not, and we should never take these things lightly. So now, let's talk about how are we going to be able to, again, resolve. I want to live with an ideal spirit. So the ideal spirit is when you were able to control your tongue not to lie, you are a happy camper now because you are in control of yourself. And you're so proud of yourself that you were so straightforward and you told people you came late to the meeting because you slept through the alarm, or you were talking on the phone with your friend and you got carried away and you did not recognize the time. Flat. No traffic, no accident, nothing. Why? Some people say, well, I'm not harming anyone. I just want to make excuse out of respect to people that I was not really careless about the meeting. No, I'll tell you why. This is unacceptable excuse. Absolutely unacceptable. Why? Because when you lightly lie and you don't have guilt, this is how you're going to build to make bigger lies and bigger lies. And this is when sometimes when we say something to others and others unintentionally pass it on to others, and the affected party comes back to you and tells you, the other day, such and such told me that you told him that I said this. Is this true? And now you are truly embarrassed. You don't want to face the person. You don't want to confront him. So what do? You say, no, that's not true. That's not what I said. But you actually did say that. And you were loose about it. And now you're not ready to take the heat and be upfront with it and to say, I actually said it. And to actually declare either that you were right and what you say, you stand firm of what you said, or that you said, you know what, it was a slip of a tongue, honestly, and I take absolute responsibility for it. Yeah, you're going to be hated, but it's going to be a lesson for you not to do it in the future and not to harm others. Because this person was able to come back to you and confront you with it. What about the many other cases that people don't know that you were the reason why these things are spreading in the community, and they didn't confront you, and you were covered up, and of course you don't have guilt, and you're not going to stop. You're going to keep doing this again and again and again. So that's why it's very important to be extremely careful and cautious when it comes to these things. So what about abuse? How do we draw the line between, before I go to the abuse, the second one, which is the false testimony. You know, you live a very ideal spirit when, subhanallah, you live an honest life. Always honest life. You're not intimidated by anyone. You always feel that you are benefiting others, even if you are saying a very difficult truth. And someone comes back to you and says, did you actually say about me such and such? And you said, yes, I did. And they will actually tell you, how dare you? You know, because of this, I lost my friends, or I'm having major spousal issues and whatever. You say, well, it could be, alhamdulillah, for the khair for you. You're having major spousal issues because what you were doing was an absolute haram. And Allah covered for you and gave you so many chances. And you did not learn the lesson. So alhamdulillah, it took a person like me to actually expose you and to make you stop the harm and the abuse that you do toward others. Of course, this is a high level. Many of us do not take that stand. Unfortunately, we love to always hide behind scenes. We can talk about others behind their back. We can actually send emails and texts, very sharp emails and texts accusing people, because we're not confronting them. But it's very difficult for us to actually take the time and to tell the person, by the way, I need to talk to you. What is it all about? I just need to talk to you in person. And you open up with that person. You tell them, listen, straight up, if you don't stop what you're doing, I'm going public with it. Very few people do that, but it's very effective. And history has proven how many people have changed their lives because they were about to be publicly exposed. And it works with us all the time, by the way, with our own children. When we get to know some of our sons and daughters that are not doing very well when it comes from the akhlaq on campus, high school campus, college campus, and we send them some of the mentors and they expose them closely. Listen, if you don't stop what you're doing, I'm here to help you because you're going the absolute wrong path. You are going down the absolute wrong path. And if you don't stop what you're doing, this thing and your secrets are going to be exposed to your parents. This is bold, but it has saved lives. It has saved so many of our sons and daughters when they were about to be exposed and they were actually confronted. This is when they stopped, alhamdulillah, and they went back on track and they lived a happily ever life. So it takes sometimes a bold move. What if I'm not that type of person? Well, if I'm not that type of person, then I pass it on to a third party person who is solid enough and bold enough to confront people. What if I can't do that? Well, you need to pass it on to someone that you deeply trust that can pass it on to their parents. You just can't sit back and see a wrongdoing and an abuse in any type and form and say, I got nothing to do with that. Well, if that's the case, then what's going to differentiate the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam from the previous ummahs then? That's how we are different. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر. You were labeled to be the best of ummah, the best of nation. Why? Because of this criteria. So if I'm going to say, well, I've got nothing to do with it, then I have settled to what the previous ummahs have done. And they were never labeled to be the best of ummah. So yes, it has to be confronted in one way or another. If you're not able to do it yourself, then you pass it on to a third party that will be able to. But the wrong has to stop. And you live an ideal spirit because you saved people's lives. You saved lives. That's why you're happy. You have an ideal spirit because you feel that you're making a positive difference in people's life, in society. When you advise people, when you guide people, when you use your wisdom to give a beautiful nasiha and advice, when you sit back people on track, when you do all this, you feel that you are making a positive effect in society. That's why it makes you live an ideal spirit. You live with an ideal spirit rather than the spirit of just allowing every wrong to happen in front of you and you don't say anything about it, and you are guilty and you don't do anything about it, and you suppress that guilt and you live with it, and it becomes to a point where you become so desensitized and numb that it doesn't affect you anymore and you're not guilty anymore. And that's why you don't live the sweetness of Iman and that beautiful spirit of an ideal spirit, that it makes you happy and proud of your decision making. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those that listen to the best of speech and follow it, and to make us, inshaAllah ta'ala, strive always hard to make our status and our level of Iman and the ideal spirit that we try to achieve, to make our steps closer and closer and closer to the goal that we have. Allahumma ameen, ameen, ameen. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakum Allahu khairan wa barakallahu feekum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.